That's.
Maggie Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to speak to the second reading of the Conservation Natural Heritage Protection Bill. I echo the sentiments expressed initially by Nikki Wagner and others who have spoken on this bill tonight, that this is indeed a bill that has real harmony around it. The changes have been made unanimously, as others have pointed out, and I think that when we look at what the substance of the bill is trying to do, where Jackie Dean, as the local member, has succeeded so well, is that she has kept it simple. It is a bill that encompasses, it is a bill whose time has come, really, to sum it up that way. Some of the penalties that have been in place have been far too low, and there are other inconsistencies that need to be addressed, and her bill has done that very neatly. The Select Committee, Local Government and Environment, received 8 submissions in support and no opposing submissions. Submitters raised many of the points that other speakers have alluded to tonight on the value of higher penalty levels and the need for consistency, not only in the way that the fines are administered across land, but also against the environmentally related acts. And this piece of legislation neatly encompasses 5 of those acts, and there is more to come. And we'll leave that for another time. But I guess when I heard the submitters and read through the submissions of those who didn't want to appear before the Select Committee, one of them does sum it up. Stephanie Reynolds, one sentence really: I support the Conservation Bill and ask that it be passed only with penalties strengthened enough to be an effective deterrent. As other speakers have indicated, baby seals being clubbed to death, the shock of people watching on the television news, reading in their newspapers, listening on the radio, to the fact that poachers have come in and done inhumane and cruel acts for no apparent commercial gain. And then there are the smugglers. Then there are those individuals who come from other parts of the world, see New Zealand as a soft touch because our legislation has been too soft, and they have come here. And one example that we were given at the Select Committee, which resonated with me, was the example of the gecko poaching. Now, geckos, jewelled geckos in particular, are fascinating and unique creatures, and they deserve to be protected. That's what our legislation sets out to do. But when the poachers come in, and we had a look at some of the websites in places like Germany, for example, I mean, these little creatures are getting ridiculous amounts of money overseas. A 6-month-old gecko, for example, a jewel gecko, can be sold for over $100,000, $5,000 for an egg. You know, these are the kind of, I guess, inducements to people with a bad state of mind who will come out here, you know, as we've seen in the news, they pack them onto all parts of their body, and the poor creatures aren't likely to even survive the journey. But these people are well organised, they're greedy, it's a bad combination, and the penalties that we have put in place are going to make it, it's going to make these sort of people think twice, and they might go to countries other than New Zealand if they want to poach in this way. But there is a very real market for it internationally, and I think that Jackie Dean has recognised that from the feedback that she's had from her own community and from people whom she spoke to when she drafted up this bill. I think when I have spoken to others about this and talked about the work that goes on in Parliament, there has been a universality of approval around this. Everybody is sick of hearing about acts of cruelty, and one of the points that was made to me recently in Timaru actually was that if people are going to club baby seals to death and commit acts of cruelty on animals, not only is that a very bad thing for the animals concerned, clearly, but also where does it stop if it's not checked? What kind of a society are we if we allow people to think that they can do this sort of thing and not have the full force of the law land upon them? And this bill really does make sure that people will be absolutely aware of the penalties that will come their way. And I think that when we look at the recommendation for the penalties for individuals, a term of imprisonment not exceeding 5 years or a fine not exceeding $300,000 or both, these are substantial deterrents. The higher penalties have been put in place again, as others have indicated, for the commercially motivating offences. So this is a bill, I think, that sends a strong message to international smugglers, to people in New Zealand who might whether they're being unthinking, uncaring, or quite what, they will think twice about this, and it's a very important piece of legislation to have across a number of different acts. I do note that although there has been an unusual amount of, I suppose, harmonious attitude among the parties in this House to this, there has been in the debates tonight a few cracks about what's happening to the Department of Conservation. And I would point out that the budget for vote conservation is now $444 million, which is almost double the $226 million it was back in 2001 and 2002. It's not quite as bad as the opposition paints it out to be. In fact, they're not correct at all, but that's not unusual. It is par for the course. We are investing in recovery programs as well across National's conservation programs, and we want 35% more threatened species. And that is something that we need to, those species are ones that we need to protect, and we're moving to do that. And we are also, as a government, intending to review New Zealand's threatened species management framework, because we know and we understand only too well, as Jackie Deans has with this excellent members' bill, that our natural environment is a very valuable resource. We need to protect it and preserve it. And this Conservation Natural Heritage Protection Bill does that very well. So I join others in commending Nikki Wagner, our very good and fair and balanced chair, loves them to death. Nikki Wagner's done a great job shepherding this through, to Jackie Dean for putting it together in a very sensible way, which really denotes the fact that she's a very experienced politician and knows how to make these things work. And I also like to mention the advisors, because I think that the individuals who did the work on this bill really took it to heart in a way that I know all advisors work very hard and they're very committed and passionate about what they do, but the advisors that we had around this bill were particularly involved, and I think fired us all up with the passion that we all shared. So without further ado, Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
Andrew Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I take a call on behalf of New Zealand First in the Conservation